Concept that can scale you to outer-versal, as well as the applications of space-time like gravity and mathematics. And Platonism doesn't actually scale you to outer-versal, as the concepts within Platonism in of itself are subjective concepts. Platonism involves the belief
क्या ड्रिप ट्रिप बस ये कहा कि वाकई मैंने कितने फैन बेस को गुस्सा दिलाया। मैं कहूँगा ड्रिप बहुत सारे फैन बेस को तुमने गुस्सा दिलाया है, क्योंकि बहुत से लोगों को ये बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं आएगा कि डीसी को डिबंक कर दिया गया। वो डीसी के बहुत सारे फैंस हैं, मैं खुद भी डीसी का थोड़ा बहुत फ़ैन हूँ, लेकिन इतना नहीं कि मैं ऐसे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स वगैरह ना देखूं, क्योंकि ऐसे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स वगैरह देखने में बहुत मज़ा आता है। जब स्केलिंग की बात आती है ना, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ है। अगर आप लोग भी स्केलिंग वगैरह सीखना चाहते हैं तो सिंपली यूट्यूब में आप वर्सेस बैटल वगैरह को सर्च कर सकते हैं। उस वेबसाइट पे आपको स्केलिंग के बारे में सब कुछ बता देंगे। तो चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं।
that there are such things as abstract concepts that are non-physical, embodying a specific
एक और ये बात, प्लेटोनिज्म को बहुत सारे लोग आउटर वर्ड से बोलते हैं, लेकिन प्लेटोनिज्म कॉन्सेप्ट्स असलियत में ज़्यादा ऊपर नहीं जाते, वो बहुत लो लेवल पर हैं। इस पर मैं कोई स्कैन तो नहीं दे सकता, सिंपली इतना बोल सकता हूँ प्लेटोनिज्म आउटर वर्सल नहीं होते।
thing that defines it. For example, if the concept of the color red is destroyed, which in this case is the true form of the color red, which according to Platonism exists externally from space and time, then the color red would instantly cease to exist. However, this is extremely dumb, because he's theorizing the subjective things and things that have no objective application to reality on a universally applicable.
इस तरह की जो स्टेटमेंट्स है मैं बहुत ज़्यादा देख रहा हूँ, और यूँ कहूँ यही वजह है कि अगर आप लोगों ने देखा होगा मोटाका बॉक्स और सुना होगा एक कैरेक्टर के बारे में जो कि है मिसोगी किमोगावा, जिसके पास है एक एबिलिटी जिसे कहते हैं ऑल फिक्शन। ऑल फिक्शन की जो एबिलिटी है वो है कॉन्सेप्ट्स को इरेज करना, जैसे कि उसने कर दिया था रेड कलर को इरेज कर दिया था, जिसकी वजह से सब कुछ चेंज हो गया था। रेड कलर पूरी तरह से एग्जिस्टेंस से ही मिट चुका था। तो इस उसमें ये ऑल फिक्शन को लोग इतना ज़्यादा ओवररेटेड बताते हैं कि पूछो मत। कहते हैं कि ऑल फिक्शन लगभग हर एक कैरेक्टर को इरेज कर सकता है, असली में ऐसा नहीं, वो सिर्फ कॉन्सेप्ट को इरेज करता है। मान लो अगर उसे किसी कैरेक्टर के खिलाफ लगा दो तो वो बस इतना बोलेगा कि तुम्हारी पावर का कॉन्सेप्ट अब एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता है। तो अगर कोई कैरेक्टर ऐसा होता है जो कॉन्सेप्ट्स के ही बियॉन्ड है, कॉन्सेप्ट को ही ट्रांसेंड करता है, तो उस पर ये एबिलिटी बिल्कुल भी काम नहीं करेगी। तो हाँ, थोड़ा बहुत डिबंकिंग मैं भी कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पर, तो चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं।
Level or abstract embodiments of things that already exist. Beauty is subjective, so transcending the Platonic concept of beauty scales absolutely nowhere. The gods are basically the true form of the concept that they represent, just like Darkseid is the embodiment of evil. Not to mention the gods in question are implied to be capable of being killed by the essence of a bullet traveling through time, implying that they are bounded by time, as well as because something traveling back in time can still hit them, which is consistent with the aforementioned points about the sphere of the gods. Now, there is a scan where it states that an angel in what seems to be the Silver City presumably created the concept of dimension and sleep. However, this wouldn't be outer-versal either, because adding sleep next to the concept of dimension, which isn't even plural by the way, makes no sense grammatically speaking, and also proves that it's not in reference to abstract concepts. Also, this scan is probably not even from DC, it's likely from another story called Dark Horse. Superman needed to use a boom tube to adjust his size to be bigger than planets to the point where they are simply specks in order to exist in the God sphere in normal size. And he states that he would be a microbe in the God sphere if he were of a normal size, which implies that the God sphere is in fact not a higher dimension, as there is no infinite difference between it and the normal universe, and it's just a bigger 4D construct. It also states that all mortal universes exist in bubbles in New Genesis. This is also somewhat supporting evidence that the universes in DC are in fact finite in size and not literally infinite, and infinite could just be referencing them being very great in size, in which 122 nonillion light years is very great, as they compare Superman as being a microbe if he was a normal size in the God sphere and the Earth just being a speck. This also implies that the God sphere is not higher than the Bleed in terms of dimensionality, which isn't really a problem because the cosmological map doesn't have to depict the exact proportions or placements of the realms, just like the Dragon Ball.
मैंने YouTube में बहुत सारी ऐसी वीडियोस देखी जहाँ पर वो बोलते हैं कि अगर एक यूनिवर्स को इन्फिनिट होना है तो उसका कोई एंड नहीं हो सकता, मतलब आप उसे एक बबल के रूप में दिखा नहीं सकते। ऐसा नहीं होता है, इन्फिनिट एक बबल के अंदर भी एग्जिस्ट कर सकते हैं, गाइस ये फिक्शन है, आप फिक्शन में कुछ भी हो सकता है यारो। तो
macrocosm diagram. This is why the God sphere is described by Darkseid as just being outside the physical universes, and even more evidence is that Olympus in the God sphere is stated to be beyond and between time and space, which is just more implications that it's not an infinite difference. The Phantom Zone being boundless just means that it's likely infinite in size, and being a dimension without dimensions does not make it universal, as it's not beyond the concepts of time and space, and it's still contained within a dimensional construct, which is the God sphere. So it's just a zero-dimensional space within the sphere of the gods, which fits the category for a zero-dimensional topological space. There's also a timeless barrier without any distance, which is used to cross into the Phantom Zone, which actually supports it being zero-dimensional. So in all, the God sphere would only be fourth dimensional, so the fifth dimension of the bleed would actually be superior to the God sphere. There are infinite realms within worlds and infinite limbos within. Honestly, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever when you look at the consistent depiction of the cosmology, and it doesn't imply a difference in dimensionality, as realms within worlds could just be referring to planets within universes, or the microverse within the planets within the universe. Standing at the very edge of creation is a plane of existence known as the Monitor Sphere. Contrary to popular belief, the Monitor Sphere does not transcend the multiverse on an infinite level, much like the Sphere of the Gods. This is due to the fact that ships that are the size of cities in Limbo and in the Ori of Worlds are considered infinitesimal or microscopic in the Monitor Sphere. This is why the monitors always refer to the worlds in the Ori as the germ worlds, which means the Monitor Sphere is still only 4D. Now we move on to Limbo, which is essentially a place where forgotten characters go. Now Limbo itself is viewed as a tiny disc that the Thought Robot can hold on his finger in the Monitor Sphere. It should be noted that Limbo is not on the same level of existence as the Bleed or the fifth dimension. Limbo is on the same level of existence as the universes with 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, which is supported by the fact that forgotten 3-dimensional characters exist there, and the ships the size of cities in the Ori are also the size of cities in Limbo, which implies that they're the same dimensionality. These same exact ships can also travel to Limbo and remain the exact same size that they were, even though these ships are stated to sail the higher dimensions in context with traveling through the Bleed. It's stated that there's no material thing in Limbo to be destroyed and that it's a living memory. However, that doesn't scale any higher than the Ori. In fact, it just means that Limbo doesn't necessarily have physical things, which is still contradicted because physical things are there. We know Limbo is necessarily dimensional because, for one, quantum superposition and symmetries exist there, which are things that are both contingent upon dimensionality. Also, Superman, Shazam, and Ultraman, who are all 3-dimensional beings, existed there, and you can't argue that they're higher dimensional in existence or universal, as that would be presupposing the idea that the realm in of itself scales that high, which is what's in question, so that would be a fallacy of circular reasoning. So Limbo being non-material is probably just a way to metaphorically describe how things there are forgotten. This is also supported by the fact that Superman's essence would be transferred to a receiver in a higher dimension by Captain Atom, which is in context to when they were in Limbo, which, as I explained, is on the same level of existence as the Ori of Worlds. The Thought Robot is just a really big robot. He's not higher dimensional. I mean, this man has literally been affected by the heat of 10 billion suns. This is why Mr. Mixie states that the multiverse exists in 4 dimensions, and when you add imagination with
ड्रिप ड्रिप ने आज कुछ ज़्यादा ही कर दिया। इतना बड़ा डिबंक कि थॉट रोबोट जो कॉस्मिक आर्मर सुपरमैन है उससे बस इतना बोले कि कुछ ज़्यादा ही बड़ा है और कुछ नहीं, क्योंकि सिर्फ कुछ 1000 स्टार्स की हीट नहीं उसे इफेक्ट किया था। तो इस सब तो काफ़ी वीक लग हो गया और वो इस सब तो कॉस्मिक आर्मर सुपरमैन कहीं भी स्केल नहीं करेगा।
Which is the 5th dimension. This is where the bleed comes into the picture. The bleed exists everywhere because it's the 5th dimension, and Captain Atom is just talking about higher dimensions in context of the fact that Superman and Ultraman are in a smaller 3-dimensional world, which is Limbo. It's not saying that the Monitor Sphere is a transcendent dimension, it's just a metaphorical way to represent it being bigger than the multiverse, to the point where it sees it as microscopic, which is why the monitors keep calling the universes germ worlds, because that's how small they are compared to them. It stated that the monitors are space angels, and the monitor sphere actually contains space and time inside of it, as it's verbatim stated that scale, space, and time are different and more profound within it, which is in context to it being much bigger than the regular universe. Now, it's also stated that form and meaning surrender to the overvoid here in the monitor sphere, which is the case because the source wall was destroyed before Final Crisis, so there isn't any source wall between the monitor sphere and the overvoid anymore. But this doesn't mean that they are now on the same level of existence. It just means that if anyone wanted to go to the overvoid, nothing would be stopping them. The monitor sphere is just at the edges of existence, and you can fall from the monitor sphere straight into the overvoid, down into the dark multiverse. The monitors are basically vampires who feed on an elixir known as bleed. This is why there are 4 spokes that extend from the monitor sphere into the orrery. Bleed is actually extremely powerful in the multiverse, as even a single drop of bleed was able to free Perpetua from the source wall, which exists in a 6-dimensional space. Which is weird because Mr. Mixie also needs all his power to create a portal to the 6th dimension while taking advantage of a broken source wall, and he only states that he maybe, possibly could create this portal, so he was completely unsure if he was capable of doing it even with the source wall being damaged, which makes sense because Mr. Mixie is a 5th dimensional being, and anything from the source wall and beyond is 6th dimensional and beyond his comprehension. Speaking of 6th dimensional, let's actually talk about the 6th dimension, the final plane of existence. Existing outside of every dimension, world, and plane of existence and universe is the 6th dimension. The 6th dimension is the realm that Perpetua comes from, and Perpetua is stated to be a being from beyond the source wall that came directly from the source, which, if we look at the map, that's the overvoid. The 6th dimension is also stated to be the highest plane of existence in DC, which is also the overvoid. More supporting evidence is that 6th-dimensional beings like Perpetua, known as the Hand, are tasked with starting new multiverses in the overvoid by the Presence, and they are stated to be extra-dimensional beings. A 5th-dimensional being talks about the 6th dimension being beyond his perception, which makes sense because he's established as a 5th-dimensional being, going by the aforementioned points regarding the 5th dimension and Mr. Mixie, so logically speaking, the 6th dimension would just be a dimensional difference from the 5th. Even more supporting evidence is that the source wall, which is stated to be an infinity beyond infinity and separates the multiverse from the overvoid, is stated to exist in a 6th-dimensional space by Metron, and is stated to be a dimensional gap by Darkseid, which is incredibly consistent with the aforementioned points. Another thing that proves it is that years literally pass in the 6th dimension, and a fraction of the source is stated to reveal itself on a map of all of space and time. Now, I know people use this scan to say that the concepts of past, present, and future mean nothing to Metron, to say that he's outer. However, he makes it clear that he's not talking about abstract concepts, but rather the idea of past or future doesn't have much meaning for him, as he doesn't have any worries about the future or the past, which is why he talks about it having meaning only to the Justice League. And something lacking meaning to you does not imply that you scale above it. Another thing is the fact that the Chronicler, a being from the overvoid, rips through the fabric of space-time from the overvoid to enter into the multiverse, which means that space-time does exist in the overvoid. Another implication is that a powerful force locked inside the source wall flew through space and time towards the Earth. And another one is that Perpetua talks about the 4th dimension, which is time, in context to them being in the 6th, clearly implying that she's actually 6D, which is even supported by the fact that Cosmic Raptor imprisoned her in the source wall, which exists in a 6th-dimensional space for defying the will of the Presence. So Perpetua, as well as the Hands and the Chronicler, are all low 6th-dimensional beings, and I say low because there's no proof they can destroy the overvoid and just exist here, so they would just scale to low 6D, just as we don't scale to infinite 3D or 4D because we live in a 3D universe. The one who actually scales to the whole place is the strongest being in DC, the Present, who contains all of DC in his mind, with his mind being the overvoid itself. Now, people try to use this scan where it states that all things are being layered onto themselves endlessly to say there would be an infinite hierarchy, but that makes no sense because an infinite hierarchy is already infinite. But this implies that the process is still taking place continuously, so it's not an infinite hierarchy. Also, like I said earlier, something being layered doesn't automatically imply a difference in dimensionality. At this point, the whole DC cosmology would accurately scale to 6th-dimensional or low complex multiversal, which is not weak in any regard, but just not as strong as people make it out to be. This is the most accurate depiction of the DC cosmology you will ever find, and people who are going to disagree with this or going to have a problem with it are most likely salty comic fans.
Drip तुम्हें सल्यूट है भाई, मेरी तरफ से सल्यूट। ज़बरदस्त डिबंक था, एक से बढ़कर एक प्रूफ, एक से बढ़कर एक स्कैन्स दी और हाँ, सबको चुप करा दिया। मुझे भी, मेरे पास भी कुछ आर्ग्यूमेंट्स नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि कुछ ना कुछ इसमें कुछ स्कैन के साथ आर्ग्यू किया जा सकता है, लेकिन ज़्यादा नहीं।
You don't want to accept the fact that the rank scales don't make any sense whatsoever. Now, for some honorable mentions, I'll be debunking some scans people use to rank Superman. The first argument is that concepts like weight are meaning to him, making him out-of-versal, but this doesn't scale to outer because it mentions space-time and distance within the same sentence, which are both entailing the exact same thing, so it's a pretty redundant repetition. And it also mentions temperature and weight as a part of those concepts, which makes it clear that it's not a reference to abstract concepts, hence they cannot be outer. He says they have largely lost their meaning to him, but they would need to completely lose meaning to him for it to be out-of-versal. And not just losing meaning, but losing value to him completely. Because something losing meaning to you doesn't imply that you scale above it. That's a non sequitur argument. He literally implies that space-time and distance still have meaning to him within the same scan. Damn, all that and he still got bodied by a kaiju named Godzilla. The context of the situation is that Lex Luthor teleports Superman to another galaxy, to which he comes back in a short amount of time, seemingly through a portal, which supports the idea that Superman actually accelerates and then becomes so fast that he warps space-time and then can actually travel extreme distances very quickly. This actually ties into the next scan where it's stated that he has speed that defies the common concept of space and time, and the fact that it says common concepts means it's just in reference to mental ideas and not
ये कई बार इस बात पर आर्ग्यू किया गया है कि सुपरमैन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट से बियॉन्ड नहीं। एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट्स असली में ट्रू कॉन्सेप्ट्स होते हैं, बाकी के जो कॉमन कॉन्सेप्ट है वो सिर्फ मेंटल आइडियाज़ होते हैं, जो कि हम यूँ समझ लो, आपका एक सिंपल मेंटल आइडिया होता है कि मान लो आप किसी चीज़ को देख रहे हैं, बोल रहे हैं कि हाँ ये तो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ स्पेस एंड टाइम से आगे है। ये बस हमारा एक सिंपल सा आइडिया है कि ऐसा है, जबकि असलियत में हमें पता नहीं है।
abstract concepts. It states that Superman uses special warps in order to travel those extreme distances, so he accelerates for a period of time till he reaches a speed beyond the speed of light, where he's able to warp space-time and cross the bonds of infinity. This is why Superman's casual speed feats don't really sum up to that of the speed of light, and he has to accelerate for a long period of time before actually reaching the speed of light and surpassing it. The feat of Superman punching the World Forger is taken heavily out of context because, for one, the World Forger's powers gradually weaken when he's within
ओके, ये बहुत सारे लोग इस बात पर आर्ग्यू करते हैं कि आखिर कि वर्ल्ड फॉर्जर असलियत में अपनी फुल पावर पे था उस वक्त जब वो सुपरमैन के साथ फाइट कर रहा था, लेकिन असली में ऐसा नहीं था। एक स्टेट ऑफ कॉमिक में दिखाया गया था कि वर्ल्ड फॉर्जर बहुत ही ज़्यादा वीकेंड हो गया था जब वो लोअर डिमेंशन में आया था, लेकिन कोई उस बात पर ध्यान ही नहीं देता है।
the multiverse for too long, and his powers are greatly diminished when he's within the multiverse. And he literally agrees with Batman to align multiple stars so Superman can pass through them and amp himself in order to damage him. Superman consistently ranges in a multi-solar system level to multi-galactic ranges with faster than sound speeds, and sometimes when he's amped, he can reach these insanely high levels. He also has multiple anti-feats like being affected by vegetables and being spanked by Daddy. Alright, I'm just joking. So in the end, DC's an incredibly vast and complex cosmology, but hopefully I've been able to show you the actual levels and placements of the cosmological structures in the multiverse. You don't have to be out-of-versal or boundless before you're considered extremely powerful or strong. It's better to take things as they are rather than taking them out of context just to satisfy your character bias. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and if you learned something new, please comment down your thoughts in the comment section below, but no debating in the comment section because nobody is reading all that. Just join my Discord server if you want to debate people, and I'm serious, if I see any mega long comments, I'm deleting them. You really can't disagree with this video because everything is just verbatim stated from the comics themselves, and if you still think DC is outer after watching this, you're a lost cause. Just cope, bro. Stay tuned because I'm coming out with a Marvel scale / debunk very soon. So at the end of the day, DC may be extremely powerful, but they're definitely not Goku-versal.
रोस्टेड। ओके, तो जो ड्रिप ने जो डिबंक दिखाया वो काफ़ी ज़बरदस्त है, मैं इतना बोलूँगा। और मैं उसकी बात से काफ़ी हद तक अग्री भी करता हूँ, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग डीसी को हद से ज़्यादा ओवररेटेड दिखाते हैं, बोलते हैं कि वो आउटर वर्सल है, बाउंडलेस है, बियॉन्ड टीयरिंग है, जबकि ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है। मैं उसे खुद हाइपर वर्सल तक स्केल करता रहा, हाइपर या फिर आउटर के बीच में, लेकिन यहाँ पर ड्रिप ने उसे कॉम्प्लेक्स मल्टीवर्सल तक ही स्केल कर दिया। तो अब मैं इस बात से काफ़ी हद तक एग्री करता हूँ, क्योंकि इसने जो भी स्कैन्स दिखाए हैं वो सब काफ़ी हद तक वैलिड हैं और एक से बढ़कर एक प्रूफ दी है, तो इनसे मैं मना तो नहीं कर सकता, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि शायद अभी भी थोड़ा आर्ग्यूमेंट हो सकता है। लेकिन डीसी के बहुत सारे फैंस अब मुझे लगता है कि ड्रिप को बहुत गालियाँ देने वाले हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा बोलेंगे। तो लेकिन मुझे बहुत पसंद आई कि ड्रिप, थैंक यू वेरी मच कि तुमने ये वीडियो बनाई। तो गाइज़, अगर आप लोग इस वीडियो को चेक करना चाहते हैं तो लिंक ये डिस्क्रिप्शन में है, आप वहाँ से जाकर चेक कर सकते हैं और मैं रेकमेंड करूँगा कि जाकर चेक करें। और अगर आप लोग चाहते हैं कि मैं किसी और वीडियो पर रिएक्ट करूँ तो लेट मी नो इन द कमेंट्स बिलो। और अगर आपको वीडियो पसंद आई हो तो वीडियो को लाइक कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए, और चैनल पे नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब ज़रूर से ज़रूर कीजिए अगर आप सच्चे एनिमे फ़ैन होंगे। तो इसी के साथ गाइज़, ये था आपका फ्रेंडली नेबरहुड हैज़न मास्टर। आपको मिलता हूँ अपनी नेक्स्ट वीडियो में, तो बाय।